Good evening. By the grace of God we are here, and by that same grace we will take this hour to breathe before the headlines, to let the inner room become our true chamber and the stillness our teacher. We will not try to outshout the world. We will not add our voices to the clamor of opinions and alarms. Be still and know that I am God. Not be clever, not be quick, be still. In that stillness, the measure of things changes. Weight returns to what is real, and the froth of the day subsides. We can say it gently, and we must say it plainly. Fear grips the world. Fear in sick rooms, fear in boardrooms, fear in homes, fear in halls of state. Our nerves mirror the news. Our breath takes on the cadence of the bulletin and the push alert. Fear, fear, fear. We will not dramatize it. We simply name it so that we may withdraw the only life it has our consent. The noise has never yet created a star, and it will not order your steps tonight. The wind may be contrary, but the master slept in a boat during a storm, and when he awoke, he spoke to the sea, "Peace, be still," and the sea obeyed. Let that same word be the temper of this hour. At the outset, let the thesis stand like a pillar in the mind. There is only one power, not two powers in conflict, not a good God struggling with an evil force. One power. All causation, all law, all true activity belong to the infinite, invisible we call God. One with God is a majority. And I do not mean a majority by votes, or by numbers, or by the counting of hands. I mean a realized majority, conscious union with the One that outmeasures every condition. If we grasp that even feebly, the temperature of our thought begins to fall, and we find that we are not victims of the weather of world opinion. This is not taking sides with capital or with labor, with party or nation, with policy or platform. This is not a work of attributing virtue to one group and vice to another. The government shall be upon his shoulder, not upon the shoulders of our faction. In this room, our citizenship is in God. Our fealty is to the Spirit, and that leaves us free of the compulsions that make arguments feel necessary. We can bless without agreeing. We can love without joining a camp. We can be present without being partisan. Now, the invitation, and it is simple enough to practice that a child could begin, live through the Spirit now. Turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. Let that be more than a phrase. Right where you are, in your chair, in your skin, draw the attention inward, and without words, if you can, without much petitioning, acknowledge, "Thou art." That is all. The presence is here. The life that hangeth the earth on nothing hangeth you on nothing visible. You are upheld by what cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and yet it is the most substantial fact of your being. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. We are not setting out to improve noise with better noise. We are not entering a contest of arguments. We are not even leaning on the arm of flesh, more force, more funds, more friends, more facts. We are consenting to the reign of an invisible government grace that orders without fuss, that heals without knife, that reconciles without conquest. "My grace is sufficient for thee" is not a verse to embroider only. It is a law to stand in. If grace is sufficient, then strain is surplus, and tonight we retire surplus effort. We give right of way to the One, and so we frame this hour as sanctuary. Your heart may be weary, your hands may be trembling, the mind may still be chasing its tail. It is all right. Bring it all into the presence, and let the presence define it. We begin here. One power, one presence, one life. Fear named, but not enthroned. The world clamors, but we will answer from silence. Live through the Spirit now. Turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. From this foundation, we will find that the noise thins and the real voice becomes audible not in thunder, but in the still small voice that has led saints and sages through older storms than these. Let us rest in that, and let that rest begin to govern the rest of our hour. From this quiet, we can afford to look honestly at the world we walk through tomorrow morning. Not to excite the nerves again, but to tell the truth without dramatics. Fear is making its rounds. In the sick rooms, fear of a number on a chart, fear of a sound in the night, fear of pain's return. In the paychecks, fear of the thin line between enough and not enough, the rumor of cuts, the price of bread, the bill that arrived early, and the payment that came late. In the schools, fear for the children, fear of what is taught and what is not taught, fear of the hallway and the bus stop. In the streets, fear of the siren, fear of the silence, fear of the face we do not recognize. In the sanctuaries, fear that faith is fraying, fear that devotion has become division. In the parliaments and council chambers, fear of losing, fear of yielding, fear of the other flag, the other party, the other history, and behind those doors, fear that one wrong word will alter the markets and reroute the armies. Fear, fear, fear from the pillow to the pole, from the quiet ward to the loud floor. Let us be plain about it, and then let us be free of the guilt that rides in on that word. This fear is not your private defect. It did not begin with you, and it will not end with your willpower. Fear is a universal mesmerism, a suggestion in the air, a tide that laps at every shore and pretends to be the ocean. It speaks in headlines and whispers in waiting rooms. It borrows your tongue to tell its story and then calls it your story. No, God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. If it did not come from God, it did not come with authority. It is not a law. It is not a cause. It is a suggestion seeking consent. Now we must ask the question that the world keeps answering the same old way. Are bigger budgets the remedy? Are more locks, more laws, more force the remedy? Are louder voices, sharper slogans, and angrier panels the remedy? The answer is no. If fear is universal suggestion, then adding more weight to the scale of appearances cannot quiet it. We have multiplied treatments, and yet the unease grows. We have built larger arsenals and stronger firewalls, and yet sleep is thinner than it used to be. We have raised the volume, and somehow the message is still, be afraid. Hear this gently, but hear it as law. Fear has no power except the power we lend it. It has no life but the breath you blow into it. It is a shadow on the wall, large only because the light is behind you. Turn, and it shrinks. It is the dream that terrifies until the sleeper wakes, and then it cannot even be found to be argued with. Perfect love casteth out fear, not by wrestling, but by presence. Fear is a borrower. It borrows our belief, our attention, our repetition. Say a rumor enough times, and the room behaves as if it were law. Withdraw your voice, and the echo dies. Feed fear with your dread and your forecasts, and it grows fat on your substance. Starve it by refusing consent, and it withers without quarrel. Do not mistake me. We are not denying that there are conditions to meet. There are diagnoses to receive, contracts to negotiate, decisions to make, threats to assess. We do not live with our heads in clouds of denial. We live with our hearts in God. We deny fear the one thing it needs, our agreement. We deny it jurisdiction. Be not afraid is not a scolding. It is a revelation that fear has no office in the government of this universe. We can look at a lab report without bowing to it. We can read an article without eating it. We can sit with a relative in trouble and not let fear sit in our lap. This is where the pivot begins. We are not going to fight fear with fiercer forms of the same energy. We are going to withdraw its borrowed power by withdrawing our consent, quietly, repeatedly. As often as it knocks, we are going to stand in the stillness that has already announced itself tonight and let that stillness answer the suggestion. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. From that standing will come a different kind of action, not reaction, but response, not noise, but authority. We are not choosing sides among the fears. We are choosing to let them pass without our signature. And as we do, the air clears enough for us to behold what truly governs. That will be our next step. Now we let the curtain lift on the simple, final truth that changes the temperature of everything. There is only one power, not two in contest, not a tug of war between light and shadow, but one. The one that spake, and it was done. The one of whom it is said, the kingdom of God is within you. All causation is within, the effects are without. The world calls the effects powers. The Spirit names them footprints. The current is not in the bulb. The bulb glows because of a life it does not generate. So with your affairs, so with your body, so with the nations. The causative efficacy is the infinite invisible. We live through what cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and yet it is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Do you feel the antithesis rising in your thought? Spiritual causation, not material collision, inner governance, not external compulsion, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. That is not poetry, that is law. The machinery of outward force can move boxes and pass bills. It cannot give rest unto your soul. It cannot heal the root. It cannot still the storm in a boardroom any more than a bigger oar can still the storm on Galilee. But the recognized presence, the one realized speaks, peace be still, and the sea remembers its maker. When the inner seat of government is acknowledged, things without fall into rank. When we try to govern from the circumference, we chase our own tail and call it strategy. Here is the identity that makes this practical, not mystical. The power is in I. And I do not mean the personal I that has a name, an age, and an address. I mean the I that heard itself say, I and my Father are one. The I that is the presence of God as your very being. All power is within ourselves, because God is the self of us. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Hear the corollary that ends 1,000 anxieties. There is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him. Nothing from without can enter to defile. Not a headline, not a rumor, not a germ, not a vote, not a market. That does not mean we despise instruments or neglect wise steps. It means we cease to attribute power to that which is powerless until we lend it ours. Let me be as plain here as I have been in every town and ward where this has been proved. This is not a work of attributing virtues to capital or to labor, to your side or mine, to your tradition or mine. This is not taking sides with the needle or the knife, with the manifesto or the memorandum. This is recognizing, one, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, and therefore we do not make flesh and blood our gods or our demons. We bless all, we enthrone none. The government is upon a shoulder that is not subject to poles, and the law of that government is grace. One with God is a majority, and I am not speaking arithmetically. I do not mean that your vote outnumbers 10,000. I mean that realized oneness is decisive reality, the kind that needs no cheerleaders and fears no count. I have watched one realized consciousness steady award where machines were busy measuring fear. I have watched one realized consciousness enter a meeting wired with rivalry and leave it unwired. and no one could tell you when the temperature changed. If I had not witnessed this years on end in homes and hospitals and offices, and once in a little airport lounge that had become a battlefield of delays and tempers, I could not sit here so quietly. But I have, and I can. So cease from counting heads, count on God. Cease from plotting alignments, align with the presence. Abide, and let the abiding do the arithmetic. When you consent to the inner government, you discover that what stands with you is not sentiment but law. If God be for us, who can be against us? Not an if of doubt, but an if of revelation. If this be the case, and it is, then noise is not power, and appearances are not authority. Live through the Spirit now. Turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. Let the one within announce itself as your very I, and you will find that you have become, without speeches and without struggle, the quiet majority that requires no votes, because it is reality itself taking form. Grace now takes the floor, not as an idea, but as government. We have named the One. Let us acknowledge how that One operates in grace. God's grace is our sufficiency in all things. We do not say that to soothe ourselves. We say it because we have run the numbers on human urgency and found them wanting. We have watched plans multiply and the fruit diminish. We have felt the strain that produces motion without progress. It is the Father that doeth the works, not our cleverness, not our pressure, not our fret. The places where we stalled were not moral failures. They were signposts. You have come to the boundary of human management. Beyond this line, grace governs. Antithesis helps us see it. Strain or sufficiency, push or presence, sword of the Spirit, not the surgeon's knife, spiritual operation before material intervention. Now let the humility be heard clearly. We do not condemn instruments. We enthrone grace as first reliance. If a knife must be used, let it be used as the servant of the Spirit, not as a rival God. If a contract must be signed, let it be signed under unction, not under duress. If medicine is administered or a plan is drafted, it need not be idolized to be useful. Seek first the kingdom, and the things will be added in order and without fear. But reverse that order. Seek the things first, and you will discover that even the best methods grow heavy in your hand. We must let grace redefine provision. We no longer work for a living. The living comes by grace. Work becomes expression. Living comes as gift. Take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink. Your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. That is not a charter for idleness. It is a release from anxiety as a method. I have seen the sweat of panic seal doors that a 5-minute turning to grace swung open as if on oiled hinges. A woman sat with her ledger, numbers frowning back. She had sharpened her pencil into a spear, and still the Red Sea would not part. We were very still. No bargain, no pleading, just the recognition, thy grace is sufficient. In that acknowledgement, an inward softness took hold. A call came unlooked for, unforced, and what had been blocked cleared, and the terms were better than the fear had allowed her to imagine. If I had not watched this 100 times, in paychecks and in payrolls, I would not dare speak so quietly. But grace is the arithmetic of God. Let us take this into the sick room gently. The body clamors, and fear calls for more noise, more opinions, more searching, more dire probabilities rehearsed in whispers. Listen for the different command. Be still and know. Before the consultation, before the procedure, let the consultation with grace establish jurisdiction. I have watched the sword of the Spirit do its cutting, severing fear from fact severing suggestion from identity, so that whatever human step followed was done in confidence and often in less measure than was threatened. Again, we do not make laws about methods. We recognize a law above them. Grace is first, and when grace is first, even a bandage becomes sacramental. Even a schedule becomes peaceful. What then is the practice? Relax the frantic fixing. Unclench the mind that keeps reaching for more levers. Sit back 1 inch in your own chair and inwardly consent, Father, glorify thyself. That one consent changes the center of operation. Wait without sulking. Wait without the stopwatch. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Do not leap ahead of the leading. The next step is not invented by fear. It is announced by grace within. It may come as a phrase, as a quiet certainty, as an easing in the chest that says, now, or just as surely, not yet. Yield to that timing. You will accomplish more by obedience to an inner yes or no than by a week of frantic yeses and guilty noes. You can prove this in small ways today. Begin with a simple matter you have been pushing. Lay it down for 3 minutes. Smile at it, withdraw its borrowed importance, and say, thou hast no power. Thee only has all power. Let the presence be felt even faintly. When you rise, move in the light you have, not in the fear you had. You will find that some things fall of themselves, and for those that require your hand will be guided and your step unhurried. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. It is not our strength made perfect by extra effort. It is his strength made visible when our strain steps aside. So we confess our limits without shame and place the government upon his shoulder. We choose the sword of the Spirit before the tool in the drawer, the inner consent before the outer consent, the kingdom before the things, and having chosen, we rest not passive, but poised. God's grace is our sufficiency, quietly accomplishing what strain cannot, ordering what confusion cannot, providing what calculation cannot. Let that grace govern you now, and you will discover that the road smooths under your feet, not because you became heavier, but because the presence went before you to make the crooked straight and the rough places plain. Now we make the transition that settles this teaching into your bones. He hangeth the earth on nothing. That which looks unsupported is sustained by an order that eyes do not see. So with you, so with your household, so with the counsels of men. Live through the Spirit now. Turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. Let this be more than a beautiful cadence. Let it be your new reflex. In the instant between hearing and answering, turn. In the half second between reading and reacting, turn. Do not wait for a crisis to build a habit. Practice on the small and the plain until the habit builds you. We do not deny appearances, we deny them power. We do not close our eyes to the report. We close the door of our inner house to its authority. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. The seen is temporal, the unseen is eternal. The outer is effect, the inner is cause. When the thermometer says fever, we do not argue the mercury. We withdraw our worship and return causation to its rightful throne. When the memo says cut back, we do not canonize the memo, we return government to grace. This is not stubbornness, it is obedience to law. We walk by faith, not by sight, is not a license for foolishness. It is a charter for right sequence, spirit first, then sight corrected. How does the invisible announce itself? Not with fireworks, but with evidences appropriate to its nature, peace, quiet assurance, a presence that steadies the hand before the phone is lifted, that softens the voice before the sentence is formed. The kingdom of God is within you, therefore its proof is within before it is without. Sit 1 inch back into that within. Close your eyes briefly if you must, or leave them open, and turn the attention as you would turn the ear toward a friend's whisper. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Do not labor, do not strain. Recognize, consent, and wait a breath beyond impatience. Often you will feel it as warmth across the chest, as a loosening of the jaw, as a sentence that comes already rounded with kindness, as a simple not yet or a simple now. That is the invisible becoming tangible as authority. Set a boundary for yourself here that will save you years. Do not argue this outwardly. Enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. Do not correct your neighbor's theology. Do not debate your spouse's concern. Do not make a hobby of explanations. Let the secret place do its work in secret. You will discover that when the inner government is acknowledged, outer arguments exhaust themselves without your commentary. The temperature in a room drops 2 degrees because one among you refused to heat it. You did not win. You withdrew consent to the only energy that could have kept the quarrel alive. Make this pivot practical. Before you answer that email, you can feel in your shoulders, lay your hands quietly in your lap and say, I. Not the little I that is hurried, but the I that is one with the Father. Before the visit to the ward, stand in the hallway and breathe one recognition. Thy peace be upon this house. Before a meeting, where positions have already sharpened into weapons, step into the washroom if you must and remind yourself there is only one power. Then go back in and let your presence vote without words. You are not bringing human charm, you are carrying realized law. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Let the unseen be your first resort, not your last. Choose invisible reliance as your new reflex. Train the soul the way a musician trains the hand scales, done quietly until the concert plays itself. You will find that the presence becomes felt authority governing your tone, ordering your steps, arranging your day with a precision your plans could not approximate, and when interruptions come, as they will, you will smile not the smile of superiority, but the smile that knows the earth is hung on nothing visible and yet does not fall. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Hold to that. Practice it silently, and you will prove that the life within is the law without. Let us make it very plain. So plain that the heart cannot misunderstand it. Fear is not your private property. It does not belong to your name or your history. It is a universal suggestion, a climate that drifts in and seeks to be believed. It borrows your voice to repeat itself. It borrows your nerves to feel itself. And it will borrow your calendar to schedule itself if you sign for the delivery. Do not sign. Withdraw your assent. Lift your consent off the image, off the word, off the scene. It is I. Be not afraid. When you know who the I is, you know what to answer the suggestion with. No. Here is the method, so simple that you may overlook it if you are looking for drama. When fear presents its picture, do not wrestle the picture. Remove the current. Take back the only supply it has, your belief. Smile at it. Not the smile of cynicism, not the curl of superiority, but the quiet upturn that says, I do not feed you. That small embodied cue reminds the soul what the mind forgets. We are not negotiating with a power. We are facing a rumor. Smile at the number. Smile at the tone of the email. Smile at the siren memory from an old season, and inwardly say, Thou hast no power. The only has all power. Let anaphora become armor. There is no power in disease. There is no power in debt. There is no power in headlines. There is no power in diplomacy, in policy, in the fears of markets or the tremors of conferences, except the power we yield by believing. Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. That is the Master's word to every pilot that parades in the imagination. No power from above has been given to fear. Therefore, no true power has been given to its forms. They live on borrowed consent. Take back the loan. Practice it as a loop, as naturally as you breathe. Pause the scroll. Lay the device down for 5 seconds and let breath return to the belly. Whisper within: one power, one presence, one life. Do not hurry the whisper. Let it till the soil. When the next image arises, invoice, report, rumor, repeat the loop. Pause, breathe. Whisper the truth, not to make it true, but to let it be true in you. Then smile. That smile is not performance. It is sealing wax on the inner decree. I will not supply fear with my substance. Train this on the plainest things. You open the mailbox, there is the envelope that taught you dread. Smile at it. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. You look at the appointment on the calendar, the old ache calls it the day. Smile at it. I shall not die, but live, and declare the works of the Lord. You read the bulletin that insists the world is unraveling. Smile at it. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. Not to mock the world, not to detach from compassion, but to refuse the only tithe fear ever receives your inward bow. You will find that fear argues. It insists on urgency. It whispers, but this is serious. This needs your worry to prove you care. Answer it without rancor. Care is not worry. Love is not fear. Perfect love casteth out fear. Love responds, serves, acts without giving fear the microphone. Smile and go about your appointed step. If action is needed, it will be shown in the same peace that exposed the suggestion. If waiting is needed, the same peace will make waiting obedience instead of paralysis. I have watched fear arrive dressed as authority and then go out by the side door because one among us would not sign the guest book. I have watched numbers on a chart, angry minutes in a meeting, and feverish headlines lose heat because someone in the room withdrew agreement and bestowed presents instead. If you had not seen this, I would not ask you to practice it. Begin, and you will see. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It is the valley of the shadow, not of the substance. Shadows cannot bruise. They cannot bind. They need light behind you to look like giants. Turn. Let the light be before you. Smile at the shadow and walk on. Now let us bring it near at hand, where mail is opened and meals are served and appointments keep their hours. Realization precedes harmony. Inward climate sets outward weather. Do not wait for the globe to be quiet before you begin. Let the quiet begin in you and see how far its weather travels. In the sick room, come as the Master came to the untouchable, without argument, without theater, without fear. He put forth his hand and touched him. I will, be thou clean. The touch was not magic. It was presence recognized. Do not debate symptoms. Do not rehearse their lineage or forecast their future. Let the room itself find its temperature in you. Stand in the doorway and breathe one fact. Peace be to this house. If you sit, sit as one who knows. In him we live and move and have our being. Your eyes can rest. Your hands can be quiet. Your words, if any, can be few. Let the Christ within do the seeing. Let your part be consent. I have watched monitors soften their insistent tone and a furrowed brow unknit, not because we bullied matter, but because the governing atmosphere changed. If I had not witnessed this in wards and homes over years, I would not ask you to be so simple. Be still and know, and let the knowing govern the flesh without a quarrel. At the desk of provision, the same law holds. We have tried anxious earning. Now let us prove graceful finding. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Do the work before the work. Before the spreadsheet, before the application, turn and say, Thy grace is sufficient. Relax the clutching will, lay down the whip of hurry. I have watched a contract appear from a quarter the mind had not mapped, watched a backlog clear with one phone call placed at the right hour, not because we strained louder, but because we cast the net on the right side. The right side is inside. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Then act from the sustenance, not to get it. At the table of family, let love be law, not sentiment. I do not mean human niceness that smiles while it sharpens memory. I mean recognition of Christ in each other. Christ in you, the hope of glory. See him where habit sees only history. Before you answer the sharp remark, answer God within. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Let a soft answer turn away wrath without making you a doormat. You are not trying to improve personalities. You are witnessing identity. I have seen a household alter because one among them ceased trying to fix the others and began beholding them. When you look through the lens of the one, you will speak fewer words and truer ones, and chairs will scrape less loudly. Now, the stance that makes these scenes reproducible and not accidental. Abide in the Word. Spend hours, not minutes, in study, in prayer, in good works. Thy word have I hid in mine heart. Read until the reading reads you. Pray until the prayer prays you. Serve until service ceases to be a project and becomes your breath. Morning and night, return to the closet within, and let the infinite invisible be felt. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation is not a weekend, let it be your climate. Set this boundary for yourself and for those who ask you. Do not turn this teaching into another medical practice or a charm to get your way. We are not adding a new pill to the cabinet. We are becoming practitioners of consciousness. Live through the Spirit now. React only to the Spirit. If human instruments are used, let them be servants of grace, never its substitute. The point is not to prove a method. The point is to let God be God where you are. Near at hand, prove it. Let realization go first and watch harmony follow, like weather after the front has passed. One presence, one power. Smile within, consent within, and move in that light. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Carry that peace from the bedside to the inbox to the supper table, and you will find the outer air taking on the fragrance of the inner climate quietly, lawfully, surely. Now lift your gaze without lifting your voice. The same law that governs the sick room governs the council chamber. But hear this vow as you lift it. We are not taking sides. We do not lend our consciousness to blocks and banners. This is not attributing virtues to capital or to labor, to your nation or mine, to one flag or another. We withdraw fear from all sides. We enthrone no platform. We do not curse one army to bless another. We stand where the Master stood. My kingdom is not of this world. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Therefore we refuse to make flesh and blood our gods or our devils. There is only one power. The government is upon his shoulder. What then is our work? Silent service. For diplomats and delegates, for borders and battlefields, we hold to one without slogan or scorn. When you read of a summit convening under suspicion, go into your closet and recognize presence at the table before the gavel falls. When you hear that a convoy stands at a checkpoint, let your inward word arrive before the papers do. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth, not to the end of a speech, to the end of the earth. When briefings bristle and microphones multiply, add no comment, add consciousness. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. If I had not watched meetings that were set for collision, softened because one or two refused to feed the fever, I would not ask you to be so still, but I have. Silence alters weather. Let us be frank about history. Is material power the solution? Bigger and more bombs, more perfect strategies of retaliation? The answer is no. Wars will not do it. They rearrange maps. They do not heal fear. They seed tomorrows of the same harvest. Put up again thy sword into his place. We are far beyond the possibility of settling the world's problems by any human mode or means. This is not passivity, this is a higher activism, the activism of realized presence. The sword of the Spirit must go before the surgeon's knife, before the diplomat's pen, before the general's plan. When the inner government is acknowledged, policies without are corrected without humiliation and strengthened without boasting. Make for yourself a simple practice for the news that refuses to be simple. When the alert flashes, pause. Close the eyes a moment if you can, or turn them inward if you cannot. One presence governs here also. In that corridor, in that command room, at that checkpoint, in that courtroom, one presence governs here also. Whisper it not to convince God, but to consent to God. Be still and know that I am God. Then smile within. Withdraw the consent that fear has been borrowing from you to increase its headlines. Refuse to add your anxiety to the world's reservoir of tremor. Add peace instead. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. This is how collective lift takes place. As part of my consciousness, the fear in you is lifted from you. I am not manipulating you. I am recognizing God where you are. The moment I refuse to believe in a power opposed to God operating through you, that belief withdrawn from me ceases to visit you with quite the same authority. I have seen it across a table and across an ocean. A negotiator's jaw unclench, a soldier's order revised toward restraint, a rumored die because it found no echo, no argument took place. No credit can be claimed. Realized consciousness became quiet, policy, peace without platform, influence without noise. Do not go out to sell this. Do not correct leaders in public or parade your prayers as programs. Enter the secret place and let the leaven work through the whole lump. Blessed are the peacemakers. And peacemakers are not peace talkers. They are peace bearers. Bear it today like a steadying hand under a trembling elbow. When you pass a consulate, bless it. When you hear a siren, bless it. When you see a border on a map, extend consciousness across it as easily as light crosses glass. Smile just enough to remind yourself who reigns. One power, one presence, one life. And where that is realized, factions thin, temperatures drop, and men and women discover sentences that were not available to them before. We will not take sides, we will take God. We will not shout down noise, we will outlast it with presence. Let the Christ within be the quiet envoy you send into every chamber you read about, into every field you cannot walk. You are not many, but you are not counting. One with God proves to be a majority. Practice this without advertisement, and you will find that the world in your newspaper begins to behave as the world under your prayer, less frightened, less certain of its hatreds, more available to grace. He maketh wars to cease. Let him do it where you are, and it will be done where you are not. If I hadn't witnessed this for years, I couldn't stand here and speak so quietly. If I hadn't watched fear give way, not as a theory, but as a weather change, I would have to bargain, to persuade, to argue. But I have seen it in kitchen light and fluorescent light, in corridors where souls squeak, and in rooms where clocks are hidden. I have seen it. God's grace is our sufficiency. There is only one power, and when that is realized, facts without yield to the fact within. It is the Father that doeth the works. In homes first, where the common miracles are the most tender, a child's fever, and the parent's hand that trembles more than the forehead burns. We did not make speeches to the thermometer. We entered the secret place. Be still and know that I am God. The room cooled, though the register did not move. The parent's jaw unclenched, the pulse evened, the child slept, and in the morning both faces were different. If I had not seen that city by city, year after year, I would not ask you to turn instead of plead. In hospitals, yes, with the monitors and the measured tones, fear bristling in white coats and blue uniforms, as much as on crumpled sheets, we have watched the sword of the Spirit go before the surgeon's knife, and sometimes spare it, sometimes steady it, but always dethrone it as law. And in halls of power where voices practice importance, I have been present without speaking and seen a sentence softened midair, seen a vote not taken, seen a meeting adjourned for prayer no one had planned, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Why does it not always look the same? Because the seed is one and the soils differ. The sower went forth to sow. The seed is the word of the one. Some fell by the wayside, barren with indifference. The birds of habit took it. Some on stony places, quick joy, shallow root, the heat of the day withered it. Some among thorns, care and fret, and the deceitfulness of riches choked it. And some on good ground heard, understood, kept, and brought forth in patience. Out comes track receptivity. Do not blame the seed. Tend the soil. Break up the fallow ground. Pull the thorns of sensational fear. Add the water of daily practice. Shelter it from the wind of argument. Where the soil is ready, harvest is law. Where it is rocky, grace is patient. It abides and abides until a crack appears, and then a blade. Even the institutions built on forms have felt the breath of this. Churches that once feared spiritual healing as an offense to order now set aside rooms for prayer without boasting, and the sick go home steadier. Parts of the medical profession quietly, sometimes reluctantly, but genuinely have granted prayer a seat in the ward. Chaplains are called earlier. Hands clasp at bedsides before hands reach for instruments. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and the prayer of faith shall save the sick. I have noticed another thing. Over decades, practitioners of this way who live in the recognition of one power are not the fearful contagion catchers the world assumes they must be. The atmosphere they carry is a disinfectant the pharmacy does not bottle. Now, I will not ask you to accept any of this because I say it. Do not debate it. Test and see. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts. Enter thy closet. Shut the door. Practice silently. Smile at the image that shouts. Withdraw your consent from fear. Name the one where the many clamor. Then go about your appointed step without advertising your experiment. Let the signs follow. Do not run after them. These signs shall follow them that believe. Confidence rests on demonstration on what grace has verifiably done and keeps doing, in you and through you, today and again tomorrow. And when you have your small proofs and you will guard them as warmth for the next cold hour, remember that he hangeth the earth on nothing, and yet it does not fall. The same arms underneath the globe are underneath your hour. Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. One with God proves to be a majority, not by volume, not by noise, but by presence. Realize. Keep to that and let the weather change. Beloved, let us seal this hour with a simple refrain that outmeasures every headline. One with God is a majority. There is only one power, not two, not many, one. Fear does not become a second God because it shouts. Disorder does not become a law because it is repeated. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Stand quietly in that and observe how the world's noise loses altitude, not by argument, not by contest, but by presence realized. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear. Abiding in the one presence, you prove quietly and surely that one with God outmeasures all chaos. Now take this as your daily rule, not as poetry, but as practice. Abide in the Word. Spend hours in study, in prayer, in good works. Let morning find you turned, and evening return you to the same turning. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Enter thy closet, shut the door, live through the Spirit now, turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. Before you answer, turn. Before you plan, turn. Before you lift the hand, turn. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Make of your hours a habitation where grace can take up its ease, and you will find that the day orders itself as if it had longed for your consent. Carry this out as a quiet service for others. Withdraw fear on their behalf without preaching. Do not correct their sentences. Correct the belief within yourself that would grant fear a name or a throne. When you meet the anxious, let your first inward word be one power. When you hear the story that heats a room, let your first inward gesture be the smile that refuses to supply the rumor. Whatsoever house ye enter, first say, peace be to this house. Say it within. Say it as recognition, not as charm. Refuse sides, refuse slogans, refuse the flattery of being right. Be a peacemaker, not a peace talker. As part of your consciousness, the fear in them is lifted from them, not by might, not by your personality, but by the hush of the Holy One you are acknowledging where they stand. Keep the cadence simple and keep it steady. Live through the Spirit now. Turn to the Spirit for everything. React only to the Spirit. When the sea begins to mount, do not rehearse the waves. Hear the word that forever utters, my grace is sufficient for thee. When options narrow, do not magnify the corner. Honor the infinite invisible that has no corners. These signs shall follow them that believe. Let them follow, do not chase them. The majority that needs no votes will show itself in altered air, in meetings that do not explode, in bodies that remember ease, in homes that trade sharpness for light. I bless you now, not with my breath, but with the recognition that blesses, because it beholds. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Go in that peace. Take it to your street and your screen and your supper table. Let your presence be policy where you cannot write one, medicine where you cannot prescribe one, shelter where roofs are thin. Lo, I am with you always. Underneath are the everlasting arms. The presence of the gentle Christ is sufficient to calm the storms of life. Hear him say to every sea that rises in you and around you, peace, be still. And in that stillness, prove it again and again. There is only one power. One with God is a majority. Go quietly and let the weather change.